Hey guys, what's up? It is me, Parksy here, and welcome back to DGBA Season 9, Week number 4, where your Armados are going to be taking on Poblano, and we've actually got it right, so that's good, at least. A good start, at least, to this video, but we're going to be playing against Poblano and the Dunsparsenal FC. Now, this is a very important match, and as you're going to be seeing in my team building, it is actually going to be affected a little bit by our records. But firstly, if you do enjoy this video at any given moment, just keep in the back of your head that you can always leave a like if you do enjoy. That definitely helps me out and lets me know that you guys actually enjoy this content. And I'm sure to summarize this at the end of the video anyway. But if you feel the need, also subscribe because you can never miss one of these videos. Again, I am uploading these weekly because quarantine sucks. But anyway, we're going to be going up against Poblano, and currently I have been, as a matter of fact, just screwed over so far in the battles of this league, like my timetable. I've had to play JP, which was 0-0, fair enough, and then I've had to play Spoink, who is 1-0, which was, again, I guess, fair enough, and then I had to play Luke, who is one of the highest ranking people in the power rankings and in the league with a 2-0 record, and now I have to play against Poblano, who is number 2 in this league with a 2-1 record and a +8 differential, of course. If you haven't checked out the previous video, make sure to go check it out. A card should come up just about now, or I guess at 140, because I do like even numbers, so there, you should have got it about then. But anyway, he is second with 2-1, and I am the only undefeated person in the league at 3-0. So you better have checked out that cards that should have came up, because that will tell you how I've done in the previous battle and how I've got my previous victories. You can also just go mentally check them out in the channel as well. But yeah, this is going to be an important battle because I definitely feel like Poblano, so far at least, is obviously my biggest playoff contender. He is very likely to get into playoffs. He has done very well in the season, and looking at his team, you can pretty much tell that it validates his success. It is a very good team. As you can see, he has got a team of Megalopony, Talonflame, Zipstrike, Mew, Kyurem White, Sharpedo, Nidoqueen, Alumamola, Magearna, and Delmi. So it's a very interesting team. I do have to clarify, however, that his team does have some restrictions, because if not, it would definitely be very overpowered. The Kyurem White on his team cannot run any items, nor can it run Roost, so it's pretty much just a wall breaker that's offensive, and it can't have access to any healing moves on its own. I guess maybe you could run, actually no, I think it's just no recovery straight up, so you can't even run rest on it. But I guess that's why he's running Almamola, which is a really good wish passer, as well for the Magearna, which I believe is also itemless and can't run shift gear. So those are the two best options that Magearna really has. It really likes the ability to run Z crystals like Electrium Z, Steelium Z, Ferium Z, and just general items. I used it in Season 6, as you guys might have seen 1 or 2 videos of it, and sorry, I'm going to move my mic. It did perform really well. I used Shuckleberry and Magearna about 4 or 5 times, and it could pretty much kill off its counters due to its ability to run Ice Beam and just get sneaky knockouts on ground types that ultimately help my team. But without shift gear, again, it's his best setup option in my opinion. It still, however, does get access to some pretty good moves such as Camp Mine and Trick Room, which I definitely have to keep in the back of my mind. But his team is really offensive, and it's really good against my team. Annoyingly good against my team, let me make that known. Mew is really good, whether it is a defensive defogger, whether it's a physical attacker, whether it's special, can completely just do so much work versus my team. It is just such a good bulky Pokemon that also has pretty respectable offenses as well, due to the fact that it can customize its move pool so much. He also does have Megalopony, which outspeeds the entirety of my team, and which of course no team can respond to its dual stabs unless it's something like a Gofarigus maybe, just because of Scrappy plus normal plus fighting means that it has coverage against every single Pokemon and can hit them at least neutrally. Talonflame I've already went up against previous flying types, and every single time my opponents have brought their flying types. In fact, even something that I forgot to mention against the Spoink battle is that he actually swapped out Skarmory and brought Braviary, which is a bit more of an offensive flying type, so he probably wanted that offensive momentum as well, and offensive breaking power versus my team. So Talonflame is also a big threat. Then there's Zebstrika, which isn't coming. And then Sharpedo, which is a legitimate threat because it can take an extreme speed from my Zygarde. It can take a bullet punch from my Mega Scizor, so it's a very good late game win con if he wants to bring that. Nidoqueen is really good bulky pivot if he needs it. That can also respond to things like my Heliolisk, while also setting Toxic Spikes up against my team is really nice due to the fact I actually don't have a grounded poison type, and I do lean on my defensive core between Sylveon and Swampert quite a lot in games, so if he's done his research he might actually bring Toxic Spikes to try and pressure that core. Alomola, again, just a defensive Wish Passer that can really help Magearna out, especially because it has such good defensive synergy. Beginner's a pain as well, and finally is Delmise, which is a pretty good rapid spinner as well as a choice bound user, being able to have access to things like Stab, Anchor Shot, Knockoff, Shadow Claw, Earthquake, Power Rip. The list goes on, so yeah, it's a really good Pokemon. I do have a few good members versus my opponent's team, but the thing I do want to clarify now is that since he's such a likely playoff contender, I didn't put 100% into this team. I didn't bring party prep like weakness policy Zygarde or something like that, but I still put a really good amount of effort into it. I did spend hours still planning out this team, still making sure that I had good win cons, and it still was a usable and solid team, but it was more to have an intent where if I lost I was okay, because I'm still pretty much going to be in the top 3 even if I lose to Poblano, maybe top 4 to stretch if he 6-0s me, which goodness, let's hope he doesn't. But it basically was just to scout him out, to see what he has to bring versus me, because he loses a lot more if he loses this battle, because he'll be 2-2 and pretty much about 8th or 9th in the league, which kicks him really out of the higher chances of the playoff contention, and he has to go for a lower seed maybe by that stage. So he has to bring a lot better sets to try and beat me, whereas I can sort of chill off this week at least, just to scout him out, because again I think that he is probably the scariest person to play off in playoffs, and I also do want to see what he is going to bring versus my team. What is his mindset, especially because he only has 10 Pokemon. He really can't switch it up as well as someone as JP might, who had 12 Pokemon in the first week. He can only maybe swap out 1 or 2 Pokemon, since in my opinion Zebstrika isn't really that good against my team, and as you're about to see with my team's Delmise really isn't that great versus my team either, so he can only really have about 8 Pokemon in that pool to play with, which really helps me out versus him. So without further ado, let's get into the team builder. So the first Pokemon I decided to bring was an offensive breaker Azelf, and it's actually the first time me bringing Azelf, so that's really cool. Cool to see its sprite, cool to see its moveset more, as I am bringing a Fire Blast, Nasty Plot, Psychic, Signal Beam set, which can pretty much hit the entirety of his team super effectively, maybe barring 1 or 2 Pokemon, but even things like Zebstrika, which isn't hit super effectively by any 3 of these moves, still gets hit by a +2 Psychic and is easily OHKO'd by it. And also this is just a good offensive breaker, making sure they can take care of the Magearna, which is a very important component to be weakened / knocked out for the sweeper of my team to just go to town, being able to spam its priority. Maybe that's a little bit of a hint, but yeah, it's a really good breaker with Psyche MZ, allowing me to pretty much nuke my opponent's team. Signal Beam also is great for the Mew, as I can, as depending on the set, I can OHKO it if it's an offensive variant with Signal Beam at +2. And it has a really good speed tier against this team, pretty much forcing Talonflame or Lopunny to come in. Lopunny, of course, having to basically use up its fake out potential that it could use against the rest of my team, and also Talonflame breaking its Gale Wings if it wants to fire off a Brave Bird or a Flare Blitz. So that taken into consideration, the next Pokemon on my team is Zygarde. Now Zygarde with a choice band set can really do a lot of damage versus his team. Extreme Speed is a phenomenal move, being able to pick off a lot of his weakened team, and his offensive Pokemon like Talonflame and Lopunny really aren't that bulky, so if I can get off a bit of damage, like for example set up Stealth Rocks and maybe get a bit of chip damage off in the Lopunny, which my next Pokemon actually does very well, then I should be able to set up his team into range of Extreme Speed, especially because with the combination of Thousand Arrows and Crunch, I can deal with a lot of his team. I believe hitting almost the entirety of it for super effective damage. And then Toxic is finally there for the Alumamola, making sure to pressure it. If it does want to come in and set up Wishes, then it's definitely going to be pressure to do so, and I'm going to at least get some momentum out of the turn. Since Alumamola is the best response versus this set, Dhelmise is 2 KO'd by Crunch, and then Thousand Arrows can take care of a lot of other Pokemon as well. Even defensive Mew doesn't really appreciate a Toxic, and I will Toxic a defensive Mew to get me further ahead in the game, because all I really need this Pokemon for is to Extreme Speed in the late game. So yeah, pretty much my late game cleaner, hopefully, with the ability to spam Choice Band, Extreme Speed. And the next Pokemon on my team is Chestnut. As I said previously, my team really does not appreciate Lopunny. It pretty much can 3KO the entirety of my team, and Chestnut with his Rocky Helmet is allowing me to pretty much pressure the Lopunny, being able to get off 16% every single time it attacks. Plus I also have Synthesis, so I do have a way to reliably recover. Again, this is Chestnut's premiere, and unlike Azelf, I've had it on the team since week 1, so it's kind of disappointing that I haven't had to use it in the past 3 weeks, but finally I'm bringing it off the bench. I've got access to Drain Punch, Spike, Synthesis, and Toxic. This is a really good Pokemon versus this team, because his best hazard remover, he has got 2 hazard removers versus my team. One is Dhelmise, which is Pokemon Beats. It can beat a 1v1, I can set up spikes, I can chip it down with a Rocky Helmet if it goes for Rapid Spin, I can Toxic it, and unless it's something like a Lumberry, which even then I can just double Toxic, or if he is a rest set, then I guess he kind of beats me, but I can still sort of spike stack, and plus rest Dhelmise is a bit of a weird set anyway. I can just Toxic things like the Mew and the Dhelmise, and even the Alumamola if he does want to be a bit risky. I can also Toxic the Kyurem White, or hit it for a Drain Punch on the switch and being able to do about 50% of damage, which is really nice. The speed tier allowing me to outspeed something like the Alumamola with pretty much no speed investment, and those are Dhelmise trying to run some speed, trying to outspeed a pretty much 0 to maybe he's trying to outspeed like a 8 or 12 speed Chestnut, then I can actually outspeed that variant of Dhelmise as well if he does want to try and speed creep a defensive Chestnut. But just a really good hazard stacker versus the team again. Spikes, Rocky Helmet, Toxic, all really good things to help my Zygarde out in the end. And the next Pokemon on my team is Swampert. This is a good response, or my best response actually, to Magearna, being able to take Fleur Cannons from it, also being able to take pretty much 2 Ice Beams from Kyurem White. There is a small chance that I believe he can knock me out, but the maximum roll he can get is like 50.1%, so even then I can take hits, and I can fire off things like Earthquake, which especially with it not having any recovery is nice. Stealth Rock is really nice for pressuring his team, being able to break the Keel Wings on Talonflame, which is such a big threat versus my team, especially because with Fly and EMZ I can pretty much get 2 kills if I do become ill prepared to it, so Stealth Rock is going to be very important to have versus him. Rescue Chesto is nice because sometimes I'm not going to be able to get wishes into the Swampert. Spoilers for my next member, but I'm not going to be able to get wishes into it every single time, and that means that sometimes Swampert's just going to have to be able to get off its own recovery, especially if I do have to get into that situation where Swampert has to take hits from the Kyurem White. Then I can keep it in. I can take an Ice Beam, I can Earthquake, I can take another Ice Beam, I can Rest, and then I can pretty much pressure its Kyurem White. And that would be in range of things like Stealth Rocks, or pretty much the entirety of my team, so it can't get wished past into. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just really good specially defensive Pokemon that can also take hits from the likes of the Nidoqueen. Actually, this is my best Nidoqueen response, I forgot to even mention that, while also being able to be a sort of pseudo response to Lopunny if Chestnut gets weakened too much or is just dead in general. As the next Pokemon on my team is Sylveon, the speed investment allowing me to outspeed again offensive speedy Delmise, whereas I can also outspeed things like Mint Speed, Lumamula, and Nagirna. Baton Pass, Hyper Voice, Protect, and Wish, pretty much a defensive Wish pass that allows me to respond to Lopunny as a secondary response to it if Chestnut again gets weakened. And I can also respond to some other things on this team, such as the Sharpedo, such as the Zebstrika. I believe it can also take a hit from the Delmise and hit it pretty hard with the Hybrid Voice as well. It's also a really good response to Kieran White, being able to choose things like Flash Cannon. I believe Ice Beam isn't a 3-hit KO on the Sylveon, which is also really nice. So that's pretty much it. Also Baton Pass for some momentum, in case he does want to try and get in Nidoqueen to set up T-Spikes on this thing. As the final member of my team is the Heliolisk, of course, as I did mention, Talonflame's a huge threat versus my team, so I need to make sure that I have something that can outspeed it, and this is a Choice Scarf Heliolisk with Glare, Focus Blast, Surf, and Volt Switch. This Pokemon can outspeed the entirety of his team, barring Choice Scarfers. It can also outspeed things like +1 Sharpedo, Flame Charge, +1 Mew, if he is wanting a Sword Stance set, and they do have things like Glare, which is really nice if I am in a predicament where I don't know what he's going to switch into. It also is nice at crippling the Delmise if he is a Choice Band set, because yeah, it is kind of hard for my team to switch into Choice Band Delmise. I guess Chestnut can do some good things, but yeah, it doesn't really want to be taking the hits since it does force it to synthesize, and if it gets too weak, then Lopunny's a threat, as I said already. Focus Blast allows me to Oko Lopunny while also being able to 2-KO the Kieran White. Surf also can 2-KO offensive Nidoqueen, and then Full Switch is just there for momentum, being able to get maybe a momentum off on the Delmise or something like that, while also being able to 2-KO the Alumamula as well, and get some offensive positioning out of that, maybe get into my Chestnut if it needs be, but just a very good glue member of my team that allows me to have an offensive Pokemon that can pressure the Lopunny and the Talonflame, so I think that this Pokemon is definitely necessary on my team. So with that said, this is the entirety of my team. I have got Azelf, Zygarde, Chestnut, Swampert, Sylveon, and Heliolisk. As always in these videos, I have got his team, and I also have what I expect his 6th Pokemon to be versus me. So his first Pokemon on this team is Mew. I personally think he brings a defensive Defogger with something like Psyshock, Fire Blast, and Roost, but he could also bring something like Calm Mind, Rock Polish, maybe Nasty Plot, Rock Polish. He can also bring Sword Stance, Flame Charge, Zen Headbutt, if he wants to bring a physical set to hit my Sylveon as well. So there's a lot of options he can do. I just think that Mew is his best defensive Defogger, being able to respond to all 3 of my Stealth Rockers, being Swampert, Aurorus, and Azelf. I guess Azelf is a little bit shaky, but generally Mew can take on Azelf. Of course, Mega Lopunny is the second member of his team. He should have Mega Lopunny. His team breaks really well for Mega Lopunny, and my team, if we can't just be Mega Lopunny food. So I really have to make sure to keep my responses healthy to it, while also I just think that Mega Lopunny pretty much has no drawback for him, so he might as well bring it. Gives him a little bit of priority as well. Fake Out and even Zygarde, as bulky as it is, can be a response to it, since Ice Punch does 2-KO it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Talonflame is the next member of his team. I personally expect him to bring a Fly Flying EMZ variant with something like Sword Stance, Roost, Brave Bird, and Flare Blitz, since that I believe hits the entirety of my team for at least neutral coverage. However, he could also bring a bulky variant if he is scared of the Mega Scizor, which Bullet Punch can do quite a lot versus his team, especially with things like Sword Stance and Bug Bite as well. So he might be afraid of that, so he might bring some sort of defensive Will-Wisp variant as well that can sort of also check my Swampert. Even something like as crazy or out of the box as Sword Stance, Natural Gift, Grass could also be a cool way for him to pretty much destroy my Swampert and help out some of his later members on the team. Kieran White, even though he doesn't have any recovery and the inability to run things like Life Orb and Specs does hurt it, it still does have a base 170 special attack and can none of my team can pretty much switch into three attacks of it. So with that taken in consideration, I think that Kieran White is again another good breaker for the Mega Lopunny that has really good offensive synergy for it. So I think that he should probably bring it because it just can do a lot of work. Aluamola, I think, can pass wish passes again and secure him White, while also offering him a good defensive Pokemon that can respond to my Zygarde, that can respond to my Mega Scizor as well, and force them off Skull Burns, while also being able to get maybe knockoffs against the rest of my team. Their Toxic the Sylveon if necessary, but it's just a very good bulky defensive wall that I could see him going into to try and absorb some hits and set up wishes, as well as the final member of his team is the Nidoqueen, which again I think is maybe dual hazards with like Bolt Beam or something along those lines. Pretty much just coverage to hit the entirety of my team at least neutrally. Maybe even someone like Sludge Wave, a nice beam I could see him bring. But yeah, pretty much a good offensive Pokemon that also is a ground type and can respond to my Heliolisk, and also just has a really good defensive type in being able to shoot hits from the Sylveon, which otherwise his team doesn't really appreciate that much. With that taken into consideration, that is pretty much my team versus his team. There's nothing much really to go over. So yeah, that's pretty much the team, and let's get into the battle. Hey, what's up, guys? So we are back with the next part of the battle, where we're going to see how it went down, basically on this replay. As you can see, Biblano has pretty much brought the team that I expected. The only switch up was that instead of the Aloe, he brought the Magearna, which is fair enough because all you really need the Aloe for was wish passing, which still would have been nice into the Nidoqueen and the Kieran White, but I can definitely understand why I brought the Magearna. It's just a good solid tank versus the rest of my team that can pretty much take 2 hits from anything except my Choice Band Zygarde, which I definitely plan to abuse the fact that Magearna, if I can get some Volt switches off baton passes, especially since Magearna might be especially defensive wall to deal with a potential spec Sylveon. He might be switching in Magearna a lot to Sylveon, so if I can baton pass into my Zygarde a lot and fire off Thousand Arrows. His team has no resistances whatsoever to Thousand Arrows, so I can pretty much get a KO. If that Mew is not defensive set, it is really not going to appreciate Thousand Arrows. But just because of his general team composition, I do think that Mew is going to be like a defensive variant to deal with the Zygarde, maybe with Ice Beam, maybe with Will-O-Wisp, just something to hit my Zygarde because his team really offensively doesn't like Zygarde. So yeah, I think that that's definitely something that's going through my mind. Again, either Nidoqueen or Magearna is going to be Spadef, maybe Nidoqueen just due to the fact that he probably is running dual hazards on it. But expecting the Nidoqueen turn 1 lead, I decide to lead off with the Azelf because I don't want T-Spikes going up immediately. Again, 5 out of 6 of my members are grounded, and I haven't brought hazard removal this week. I just hopefully want to pressure him with Stealth Rocks to the point where he actually removes the hazards for me with his potential Defog Mew. Again, it's his only hazard remover, so again, likely going to be defensive. So again, the win condition is probably going to be Extreme Speed Zygarde, although we might have to see because it could also be a Choice Scarf Heliolisk. It could even be Azelf if I take care of the Lopunny and the Talonflame. Who knows, but I'm going to go start off this battle as I'm going to lead with the Azelf, as he actually decides to lead off with the Magearna. Now, Magearna is a bit of an issue because I do have Nasty Plot and Fire Blast, but I can't actually knock it out just outright. So I do have to switch out into my Swampert here, which is a good defensive switch in that should be able to take any hit that Magearna wants to go for. As he fires off a Flash Cannon, he does crit it unfortunately, but I mean it doesn't really matter, so who cares. As he actually reveals the Energy Ball in this following turn, which is very interesting. So I guess he did prepare to for my Swampert to be a defensive switch in, but I do get up the Stealth Rock, so at the very least that Mew's going to be offensively pressured to come in, remove those Stealth Rocks, and even without Stealth Rock, Spikes are still nice versus his team. As he decides to fire off another Energy Ball, of course just going to go for the safe KO as I aggressively switch into my Heliolisk, and here I am going to go fire off a Glare. Predicting him to go out into Nidoqueen, but also if he stayed in with Magearna, it does cripple it so that I can potentially use it to set up spikes on my Chestnut if needs be. So I set up a Glare on the Kyurem. I know that my Sylveon is a pretty good defensive switch, and so I do switch it in as he actually doubles out into Nidoqueen, so it's a very solid double. as he does show the black sludge, so that's likely meaning that yes, this is especially defensive Nidoqueen. So taking that in consideration, I am just going to leave my Sylveon in here, as I don't believe Sludge Wave can KO me, so I do just decide to go for the, I believe the Baton Pass on this turn. I do, as pretty much as I can get my Azelf in and claim a KO, as I am going to be able to nasty plot on this Nidoqueen since I live any head it decides to go for, as he does set up Stealth Rock. So here he goes out into the Magearna, thinking that because he's a Steel type and I'm a Psychic type, he can take my hits, but instead I set up a nasty plot, and pretty much he has to be forced to sack a Pokemon, as I'm going to fire off a +2 Fire Blast, which is going to deal a huge amount of damage versus this team, as here the Magearna is just going to drop, and that is a huge Pokemon down, pretty much pressuring my Sylveon. Once that Nidoqueen gets a little bit more weakened, it could potentially be a game where Sylveon can just defensively check out the rest of his team. But expecting the Brave Bird, of course, he checks me here, so I decide to go into the Swampert, as he makes another really nice play and decides to go for the Roost on this turn. But it's fine, because all I really needed from Talonflame was just for its Gale Wings to be broken, and with this small percentage of chip, that is what's going to happen. So at least now I can revenge kill him with my Heliolisk and go for a Surf, which can pretty much hit the entirety of his team, barring the Kieran White. And even though he decides to go out into the Kieran White, which is a good play, and he does catch me there, he is still taking Stealth Rock chip, pretty much wearing himself into range of just being knocked out in general, as this Surf, even though it only does 14%, pretty much only means that he has one Stealth Rock switch in left. So I'm going to go ahead into Sylveon here, as I believe he fires off a Flash Cannon, realizing that my Sylveon is my best defensive check into this Kyurem White. But even then, Flash Cannon isn't going to be able to 2 KO just because of Sylveon's really nice natural bulk. So I'm going to be able to fire off a Wish here just in case. Just might as well just keep Sylveon healthy, and then it can also respond to this, the Nidoqueen better, as he is going to be paralyzed here, unfortunately. But again, as I did clarify, he didn't knock me out there anyway, or shouldn't have, with the following Flash Cannons. Here I'm going to fire off of Hyper Voice, and I am going to be able to get up to 100%, which is really nice. Now here I am actually going to make a bit of a misplay. So I don't really, of course, I did this battle about 9-10 months ago, so I can't really tell you my exact thought processes, sorry. But I decided to fire off a Wish here. Of course, I know that I can take the Sludge Wave, as I do. It does below 40% or 50%, and I fire off a Wish here. But instead of just staying in, maybe going for a Hyper Voice, or just going for a Baton Pass instead of the Wish that turn, I instead decide to go for the Baton Pass this turn, pretty much weakening my Sylveon and forcing my Chestnut to be kept alive to respond to the Mega Lopunny, which really isn't that great, because Chestnut loses to 2 of the members of his team, whereas Sylveon, depending on his moveset, could have actually beaten it. But I decided to go out into the Azelf here with a Wish in the air. I'll be able to heal up no matter what, and I can fire off 2 Psychics and pretty much knock out one member of his team, as he does decide the Nidoqueen, which is fair enough, because it did give me a free switch into my Zygarde, and also Sylveon's pretty much weakened, so this thing's job is done, as my Azelf is going to be able to fire off a Psychic and get 2 kills in this game, which is going to be very nice. But unfortunately, he is going to offensively pressure me once again by going out into his Talonflame. If he did go out into his Mega Lopunny, I would have actually went out to my Chestnut and began maybe setting up spikes and just pressuring him. We've even gone for a Toxic. Actually, Toxic would have been better. But since he goes out into the Talonflame, I am going to be forced to sack off my Azelf here, since it doesn't really help versus the rest of his team, since it was in range of Mega Lopunny's return. Of course, Talonflame's Brave Bird, and Mew could have probably beaten it depending on its set. So here I decide to go out once again as my Heliolisk, being able to fire off a Freeze Volt Switch and get off some really nice momentum versus his team. So I get off the Volt Switch as I decide to go out into my Sylveon here, pretty much forcing him to reveal his Mew set, keeping the Lopunny at bay, and also pretty much meaning that I can get offensive momentum here, instead of it being like a double down or whatsoever, and also not making my Zygarde coming on rocks or whatever. So I decided to go into my Sylveon here as he goes out into the Mew, and I'm not really sure what this Mew wants to do. It might set up Sword Stance, it might do several things, so it just decided to fire off a Hyper Voices. Instead, he goes for the Calm Mind. So I fire off a Hyper Voice, does about 20%, so this is a pretty offensive Mew. So I pretty much just decided to go for the Baton Pass here. If he doesn't knock me out, I can maybe get in my Zygarde, maybe get in my Helix, fire off a Glare, and slow down this thing. But yeah, this thing is definitely a threat versus my team. It is likely going to be a Calm Mind, maybe Rock Polish, maybe Roost variant with Psychic and Fire coverage. However, I can't risk that. He could have Ice Beam just because the general composition of his team again. He has to pretty much sack one to Zygarde, so I think that this might be a defensive Calm Mind variant with Ice Beam to be able to respond to my Zygarde. So with that taken into consideration, I do decide to actually revenge him with my Heliolisk. In hindsight, however, I probably should have went out into my Zygarde, as you're about to see. I am pretty much forced here to make I am pretty much forced for him here to knock out my Heliolisk, because I am of course Scarf, and I'm forced into Glare as he is here going to be able to set up a third Calm Mind, being able to set up into +3. Fortunately, if he is a defensive variant with the Ice Beam or any ice coverage, I should actually be able to take a hit with my Zygarde, and if I can paralyze him once or get one defense drop, then I beat this with my Zygarde, and that's it. Because Chestnut 1v1's the Lopunny and I win. So that pretty much should be on my side, since you are taking into consideration it's what, 33% chance, well, it's about 30% chance to para, 20% chance to get a defense drop crunch twice over. So this should be in my favor to at least get a paralysis or a crunch again. He might be carrying the Roost, which could be problematic, but again, the Paras might be able to catch up to him. So he fires off a Psychic, and he doesn't get parried, he doesn't get a defense drop, which is fair enough. All I need now is just for one of them to happen this turn. More likely the paralysis, because the defense drop still requires another defense drop for my Chestnut. But I don't get the defense drop, I don't get the paralysis. So Alan, for you in the comment section, that said that I am getting very lucky. Yeah, here's your just desserts, as well as that I believe Salt to the Wound. I actually got hacks out of a 5-0/4-0 win in the BRL this week, with my Cosmic Power Clefable being Waterfall flinched twice. So yeah, this game really wasn't treating me that well, as I decided to go for a Dream Punch, and fortunately he does get paralyzed this turn, which I mean I still need to get 2 following paralyzes just because my Chestnut isn't running something like a Seed Bomb. I have only Dream Punch as my only coverage, and definitely this Psychic will be able to knock me out at +3 versus my defensive Chestnut. So I'm going to fire off a Dream Punch again. I need another paralysis. Actually, I need 2 more paralysis, but it doesn't matter anyways. He is going to be able to Psychic, knock out my Chestnut, and unfortunately, we are going to be a 3-1 with a +9 differential, which still, I believe, makes us second, or actually, I think we're second in the league, maybe third. I'm not entirely sure, but that's alright, because I did come into this game thinking to myself that losing wasn't going to be the worst thing in the world. Obviously, I misplayed. I'm going to be the first person to admit that. I definitely could have done some things better, such as keeping my Sylveon at higher health so that I could have sacked off my Chestnut, and then just being able to play a bit more aggressively my Zygarde as a, just basic, well, basically I would have been able to play a bit more aggressively as with my Zygarde as a consequence of that, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I definitely misplayed come the end, although not being able to get a paralysis or a defense drop definitely was unfortunate for me, but I can't really say much because I did get a bit lucky in the previous 2 games, so I can't say much. But yeah, we are 3-1 still, doing pretty well, and now I know what to look for in a rematch scenario. I definitely know to prepare for offensive Mew better. I definitely know to make sure that my Swampert isn't exactly the best response to the Magearna, just due to the fact that he does have energy ball that he can tech on and that he previously has teched on, while also just learning Blano as a player generally, because I don't think I've ever actually played Blano before. So just knowing that his play style is a bit more offensively, that he does have a lot of faith in his moves, such as being able to roost in front of a +2 Ace Elf, and also being able to switch in a Nidoqueen, double switch in, a Nidoqueen into the expected Sylveon. Just he's a very prediction reliant player, which is well, not even reliant, just he's good at predictions, which is fair enough because of the offensive nature of his team, being able to have access to that really good mindset and really good prediction. Ability is really nice and couples really well. But yeah, we unfortunately did lose this game. But if you did enjoy the video, why not drop a like, give me a sub, make sure to have that notification bell on so you do not miss any one of my videos that I do upload. It would be very nice to maybe see some new people around the channel, especially because I have just recently got back into YouTube, if you haven't realized, just in the past month. But that's pretty much me. Thank you guys for watching once again, and goodbye.